2, 1.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the media briefing for Council President Kate Stewart. I'm Jordan Lindsay. Reporters, if you still need permission to record, please note that in the chat. And if you have any questions, you can note that in the chat as well, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you accordingly. Now I'll go ahead and toss it to Council President Stewart for opening remarks. Council President, to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jordan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Today, before going over upcoming council items, I want to begin by providing my initial feedback on the county executive's recommended $7.7 billion fiscal year 2026 operating budget, which the council just received on Friday. We very much appreciate the work of the county executive and his team in developing these budget recommendations for Montgomery County and its residents. We know this process wasn't easy, and now the council and our staff will carefully analyze all of the budget and look at it over the next few weeks and months. Our budgets are our guiding documents that establish priorities, reflect community needs, and underscore core values. With our community values under attack by the Trump administration, with budget cuts looming at the federal and state level, and the possibility that the state will require the county to pay a larger portion of cost-sharing items, such as teacher pensions, the council's upcoming budget deliberations will likely be some of the most challenging since the start of the Great Recession. The two major challenges we face this year are the unpredictable impact of the erratic and damaging cuts to federal jobs and federal aid, combined with the unknown scope and scale of the state budget obligations that will be likely shifted to Montgomery County. As we make our way through these uncharted waters, we must carefully examine our resources and expenditures and plan for the unexpected so that we are able to continue our unyielding commitment to support education, public safety, and our essential safety net services. Our overarching goals will be to preserve the key services that our residents rely on every day while dealing with the constantly changing and challenging fiscal situation in an open and transparent way. The council will continue its tradition of centering the needs of our residents while also maintaining the fiscal stewardship that has enabled Montgomery County to weather economic storms, the COVID crisis, and maintain our AAA bond rating, which remains the hallmark of well-run governments across the country. Holding tight to our established and fiscally sound economic principles will help us all navigate the challenges that lie ahead. I want to take this opportunity to encourage residents to provide their feedback to the council as we move through the budget process. The views of our community members are instrumental in developing a final budget that will benefit our county by balancing the needs for essential services with the fiscal demands facing our taxpayers. The county's public hearings on the operating budget are scheduled for April 7th and April 8th at 1:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. Those interested in testifying at the public hearings or in person can sign up on the council webpage or by calling 240-777-7803. All right, now we will turn to our ongoing support for the federal workforce and an update on the United in Service and Support webinar series. We're continuing our efforts to support our federal workers with information and resource webinars. The third session in this series will be on March 19th at 7 p.m. This webinar will be hosted by Council Vice President Jawando, and the guest that evening will be Attorney General Anthony Brown, who will join us to discuss federal worker rights and legal updates on current cases. Just last week, two judges, one in California and one here at home in Maryland, ruled that thousands of probationary employees that were fired without cause by the Trump administration over the last several weeks needed to be reinstated. There will be opportunities for residents to ask questions during the webinar and on our website before the meeting begins. More information on how to join the webinar can be found on the council's website. Additionally, to help federal workers who have lost their jobs because of the Trump administration, Vice President Jawando is introducing a bill tomorrow to provide a federal worker hiring preference. I am co-sponsoring this legislation. The county currently provides hiring preferences to job applicants for a number of reasons, including, for example, those with disability or injury that impacts their work under the ADA, county employees subject to a county reduction in force, and veterans. Bill 10-25 would add an additional hiring preference for federal workers whose positions are eliminated or who are subject to reduction in force, known as displaced federal workers. These would include former employees who reside in the county on or after January 1st, 2025, received either a notification from the federal government that the individual's federal position was no longer needed, or that the individual was subject to federal reduction in force, as well as a notification of personnel action from the federal government that separated the individual from federal employment. They would also need to demonstrate a loss of income because of the separation from federal employment. The bill would sunset 1 year after it becomes effective. I want to thank Vice President Jawando for his leadership on this bill, and the public hearings on this legislation is scheduled for April 1st at 1:30 p.m. Tomorrow, the council will also vote on a resolution establishing a work group that will recommend strategies to fund infrastructure and growth-related needs in the county. This work group was recommended by the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, which I chair. As a council, we have all agreed that the county needs to move beyond how we do impact taxes and consider new infrastructure funding mechanisms that are equitable, predictable, and sustainable, and don't undermine other county goals such as housing, climate resilience, and economic development. The work group would determine and assess the county's various infrastructure needs and research a variety of funding mechanisms for this infrastructure. The resolution calls for the work group to meet with both developers and community members and to provide multiple opportunities and various formats for public feedback. Additionally, the work group must update the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee on its progress by March 2026 and submit a final report to the council by June 30th, 2026. This would allow the council to review the final report and incorporate it into the 2028 to 2032 growth and infrastructure policy if needed. Also tomorrow, the council will vote on a roughly $3 million supplemental appropriation funded through a state grant for the Behavioral Health Crisis Stabilization Center and Mobile Crisis Team pilot. I had the opportunity to participate in a ride-along with the Mobile Crisis Team recently and experienced the amazing work they do in our community firsthand. The funds will be used for the purpose of securing medical equipment, medications, training, and staff development and consultation services. The Crisis Center Mobile Crisis Outreach Team services respond to community behavioral health emergencies 24/7. They provide crisis evaluations, facilitate hospital evaluations when needed, stabilize crises, and make recommendations and referrals regarding treatment and resources. Tomorrow, during our council meeting in the afternoon, we will also hold a public hearing on the 2024 Police Statistical Data Report as required by Bill 45-20. The police department submitted the annual report on February 3rd. The data in the report provide a snapshot of the Montgomery County Police Department operations, including staffing, use of force incidents, mental health related responses, and substance related calls. Through this report, county residents can receive a succinct snapshot of the department's efforts in transparency and maintaining accurate records, as well as their additional efforts, such as their expanded recruit training hours, field training and evaluation program, and the 30-hour capstone course on racial and social justice in line with the Community Informed Police Training Act, Bill 1725, among others. I look forward to hearing the public's comments tomorrow about the report. And finally, we also are introducing tomorrow a resolution uplifting Fair Housing Month and affirming Montgomery County's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This resolution is being led by Councilmember Glass, and I am also a co-sponsor among other colleagues. Montgomery County has taken proactive steps to advance racial equity and social justice, including enacting the Racial Equity and Social Justice Act, which requires racial equity and social justice impact statements and assessments for bills, zoning text amendments, and appropriations. This resolution is one more step we can take here in Montgomery County to affirm and reaffirm our commitment to these issues at a time where these programs focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion are being dismantled across the country. Under this resolution, the council would reaffirm our commitment to advance policies that promote racial equity in housing, education, and economic opportunity, as well as acknowledge that all racial covenants within Montgomery County are unenforceable and contrary to public policy. The resolution also urges property owners to modify racially restricted covenants from deeds through Maryland's legal process. So those are all my updates today. I'll turn it back to you, Jordan.
Great. Thank you so much, Council President. Reporters, if you have any questions, you can note that in the chat or you can raise your hand. Up first, we have Miriam Shazad with My MCM. Good afternoon, Miriam.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Council President. So, Councilmember Friedson already came out and said that he's against the property tax increase that Elridge proposed on Friday. So yeah, he said he's against it. Are you for or against it?
Thanks, Miriam, for that question. So, we just received the county exec's budget proposal on Friday, and as a council, we are just beginning our process to go through all of the numbers. We know this is a very challenging time, and there are a great deal of unknowns. We have yet to know what the state will be doing in terms of what they may push down to us here in the county in terms of cost sharing, such as teacher pensions. We also, there are a lot of unknowns with what is going on with our federal government right now. So I think as we're going through our budget right now and over the next couple of months, we're going to have to carefully think about the county, how we're going to continue to provide basic services. And we also have to understand the stress and the burdens that our families are under here in Montgomery County. And so as we're looking at this tax increase, we also know that our residents have seen increases in the assessments and an increase in their assessments, which increases their taxes. So we're going to need to weigh all of these things over the next couple of months.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. Up next, we have Jenny Bixby with Bethesda Today. Good afternoon, Jenny.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jordan. Hi, Council President Stewart. I was curious on the legislation for federal workers. I know that there's been discussion. I was on a briefing, I know at the state level that they're looking to funnel some people into some jobs. Can you talk about, I know this legislation is still legislation, has to be passed and all of that. But have there been efforts to figure out what it would look like to recruit people who have been laid off to these positions? And also, do you have maybe a number, like a general range of how many empty or vacant positions there are in the county?
Thanks, Jenny, for that question. We can talk to our director of our Human Resource Office and get you the number of open positions. This bill, which will be introduced tomorrow, obviously, when we'll have the public hearing on April 1st, and then it will go to committee and then to the full council. And we'll be working very closely with our Office of Human Resources to make sure that with this bill and other efforts that we can take in the county, that we're making sure people are aware of the jobs that are open and that we're connecting them to appropriate jobs. We're doing that here in the county. One of the reasons we're doing the webinar series is to share information like this to our residents during those webinars. And in addition to this, we have incredible partners here in Montgomery County. Montgomery College is holding a fair to help connect people to jobs in the biotech field. We also have an upcoming job fair that WorkSource Montgomery is doing, and all of this information is available on the council website under the United in Service that we have. So I see this as one piece in many things that we're doing in the county and that we're doing in the state of Maryland to make sure that anyone who has lost their job and is impacted by the Trump administration is getting connected to potential job opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Any other reporters with questions? You can note it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, back to you, Council President. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Thanks a lot, Jordan.